Hello and welcome to the video. This is going to be a little bit of an off-the-cuff conversation about tools like Klein and RooCode and how I'm using them, where you can get value out of these sorts of things, where to maybe think a little bit about what you're doing with them, and then maybe a little bit about who should and who shouldn't. And just for context, I'm relatively new to the agentic coding space, just kind of playing with these things to see what's available and where they can be useful. I do use things like ChatGPT in my workflow pretty frequently, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But I wanted to start with first just kind of an overview of the tool, and then the basics of how I think most people use them. And I am specifically using RooCode. There are several other options out there. So I'm going to fire up. We're going to do RooCode demo and just go fully agentic for a moment. And if you haven't seen it before, what an agentic coding agent is something that is going to go in there and do it for you. That's the promise of agentic coding. And if I come in here and I can give it, you usually want to start with some pretty detailed example or detailed information about what you want to build. So I'm going to say, could you build me a basic terminal tic-tac-toe game? This should be built in Python, and should have a basic computer player to play against. And there are a few things you can do here. So you have the ability to choose to auto-approve. I've chosen to auto-approve read, write, browser, retry, and execute. And I am not auto-approving questions or to-dos or subtasks. And what that basically means is if I want it to come back to me and ask if we're going to do something different, but I'm okay with it reading and writing and running retries if the API hits a limit. So we're going to, and in fact, let's do a basic GUI tic-tac-toe game. And it's going to go off and think about it. Yep, so I'll help you build a basic. It wants to recursively view all the files. Yep, fresh workspace. We'll be building from scratch. It wants to know what I prefer. Cool. Let's go ahead and say Pygame, because I like working with Pygame. And it's going to what level of difficulty? Let's say I really just want random moves, partially because I wanted to spit out this game semi-quickly. And what it's doing is it's going back to a backend LLM model. It's going to, to-do list updated. So this is a good place to stop and say, all right, we're setting up project structure and dependencies, create the main game window, design and implement, create function. Cool. I like what it said. I'm going to go ahead and approve. So I think this is the basic way that people are using these tools is, hey, I'm going to describe what I want to build, and it's going to go crunch and build it for me. And this is... the way this feels to use for me is like delegating a task to a very talkative junior engineer. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to get the task done. They're going to require a moderate amount of supervision. My experience so far with this is that it's good. It's good if it's something that you, a feature that maybe you don't want to put time into, don't mind describing, and you want something to just sit off on the side and do it by itself. I found for me that it's not autonomous enough that I can just let it go 100% by itself and go work on something else. It's still taking some mental space to go do something. Yep, proceed with building tic-tac-toe game as planned. Simple enough. So it's going to go and run the API. This is probably a good moment to talk about the API and what it costs. So I have only been playing with this a little bit. I've tried local LLMs. I've also tried ChatGPT and their API with 4.0, and neither one of those really got me good results. I moved over to the Anthropic's Claude, and so far Claude has been much more functional. So it is a little bit expensive. So running this is probably, expensive is relative, right? If you pay monthly, something like $20 a month for OpenAI, you can sit there and use it all day long. That feels fairly cheap. This set of prompts and set of, autonomous building is going to cost me, probably 50 cents to $1 in credits to go and build. So let's go ahead and run our tic-tac-toe game and see what it came up with. So this is where things get a little bit dangerous. So you'll notice it wants to pip install Pygame, which cool, but maybe I don't want it to pip install Pygame globally. Maybe I want it to, go and do something. I want it to create a Conda environment. So in this case, I'm going to say, I'd rather you not globally install Pygame. Could you create a Conda environment with Pong, or not Pong? I'm working on Pong for another video. For this game, and install Pygame there. And this is also an interesting point to most of these agentic coding tools, is that they're really, really useful in this mode if you are either happy to give incredibly detailed instructions, or you are comfortable with maybe not caring as much about the way it's built. If you just need to quickly spin something up, or it's something that you're not personally comfortable with, and you don't want to get comfortable with it because you just don't care for whatever reason, then yeah, these are really good to use. If it's something where you have strong opinions about the way it's built, or it's a project that you intend to maintain in the long term, maybe not the best way to use the tool. In this case, I just want to throw together a basic tic-tac-toe. I don't care how it's built. I just want the game. And hey, we're going to click to place an X. And I won. So that is pretty powerful. It maybe didn't do the graphics the way I would have. It didn't set up, the game quite the way I would have if I built it. But I could have also described that I wanted different graphics, or that I wanted this to be different. With the details I gave it, it returned with something pretty functional. Now, this method of operation is not actually something that I have done a lot of, partially because, one, I've only been playing with the tool for a couple weeks now, but also because I actually enjoy the act of coding and building things, and most of the things I build, I do care about how they're built, and I do want them to be maintainable by me for the long term. So I'm going to go ahead and kill that and pull up another project to show a little bit more of how I have been using it. And that is in what is called architect mode. So if we come over here, and hopefully I've blown the font up enough for you to see it a little bit. I'm not sure how to increase the font over here, so hopefully you can see that all right. But I've put it in architect mode, and I threw a question in there that was basically like, hey, I am building a custom Pong environment. I'm training an AI agent to run on it. Do you see any issues with training? Do you see anything that I should look at? And in architect mode, the way this is set up, it's not actually going to make changes unless I explicitly tell it to switch modes, and that it can go and, make updates to the code, which I actually don't want. What I really wanted out of it, and the reason that I started playing with it in the first place, was I was talking to ChatGPT about my code and asking questions and just generally treating it like a fellow programmer that I'm having review what I'm building, because that's one of the things that it's the most useful for. And I kind of got tired of it always not having the latest context, because obviously my project is on my desktop and ChatGPT can't see what I'm building. But this can. So this can actually go through all your files. It can sit there and review your project, from the ground up, and take a look at it. It can let you converse as if you're working with someone who is on the same project as you, who can help solve problems that maybe you're running into. And in this case, I was just like, hey, this isn't training as well as I'd like. Do you see anything obvious that's wrong? And it caught a bug that I didn't even spot. And I'm going to show it to you because I think it's worth seeing for a moment if you spot it. So in this case, this is me playing on the right. This is an AI agent that I'm training on the left. You can see it's learning a little bit, but it's not great. And you probably haven't noticed what's wrong with this game yet, other than the fact that my AI agent isn't very wonderful at the moment. So what's wrong with it is it's actually spawning the ball over here, more to the left than to the right. And if you're training two sides of an agent, that means that while it's not going to necessarily hurt training, it is going to skew how well one side does than the other. And that is, in fact, what I'm seeing in my training here. So if I look at my, I've got lots of graphs down here, but I'm having the Pong agent play against itself, and I've got score player 1 here is trending downwards, and score player 2 is trending upwards. And I think, now that could also just be because of something else in the training dynamics. I'm still tracking that down. But the fact that the ball always spawns in the wrong place is one possible issue. And this isn't the only place where it does that. It's or where I've hit, ball or player spawning as a problem. In my original implementation, I always had the ball shoot to the right, which didn't seem like a problem when I was just playing with the game. But if you are trying to train an agent and the ball always spawns to the right, that's going to immediately reinforce that the agent on the left can get better by doing nothing. Because, hey, it always spawns to the right, it shoots off to the right, and if the agent on the right doesn't do anything well, then the left-hand agent just immediately scores, and you immediately have training bias. So that's something that I found earlier. But this particular thing that we just located, the fact that it always spawned a little off to the side is something that I didn't notice while playing. And in fact, even when the agent told me up here, which I may or may not be able to find where I asked it the question, but when the agent told me that, hey, your ball spawns off to the left, my first thought was, no, it doesn't. I've been playing the game for a week now. The ball spawns exactly where I want it to spawn. And then I went back and asked it, like, hey, what do you mean? And it explained, and I still didn't get it, because, not always fast like that. And then finally came in here and looked at my game code and looked at assets. And what I finally figured out is that I am setting X to half of window height, when X should be half of window width. Because of course your X is your side to side, your Y is your up and down. So I was by default going off of the window height and setting the ball off to somewhere it shouldn't be. And that was going to have a weird, subtle impact on training. And I, as a human, was not going to notice it because I really didn't notice the difference between, that ball spawning another inch over on my screen because it was moving, and it was moving fast enough that I didn't see it without being told where it was. So when we think about how to use these tools, you can use them in full agentic mode and have it go build you something. I don't think the data's in on this yet, but I have a little bit of an intuitive feeling that if you turn over your coding to the AI to do, that you are going to slowly lose those skills. That's not something I really want to do for myself. But if you treat it as an intelligent agent to sit there and pair with, to help you think about problems, and this is true whether you use the agentic in your IDE, type of workflow, or you're working with, just a chatbot on the web. If you treat it as something that you're talking to, that's a fellow engineer helping you build something, then you're going to both learn from it, you're going to get better, and your products are going to get better. You're going to actually supercharge your workflow with AI, versus what I suspect we're going to see with some of the code for me type agents, which is going to be an immediate uplift and then a little bit of a skill decline over time. This is also for those of you who have read some of the books that have been out for a while by authors like Ray Kurzweil that talk about a fast takeoff scenario for AI, or what the fact that these things can turn into a positive feedback loop. This to me is what that looks like. The fact that as we've built these tools, I think science fiction has always kind of had the AI is going to make itself better as soon as it gets good enough to update itself. And that's kind of an old science fiction concept of, hey, the computer's gotten good enough to write its own code, so it's going to take off and we're all doomed. But in the practical real world today, I think this is what that positive feedback loop looks like. It's the fact that I'm using an integrated AI tool to help me spot issues as I'm training my own AI products, and my own agents. And that's really cool. It's really cool to be able to leverage these things, again, if you use them in a way that doesn't impact your own skills. I was never going to spot that bug. I would have probably made it all the way to the end and built a whole course on how to build this game, and somebody in the comments would have eventually noticed this and pointed it out, because I wasn't going to see it. But with somebody else, even if that's not a person, looking at my code and reviewing things, I was able to spot the bug, and I'm about to fix the bug. And in fact, let's go ahead and do that. So window height window width, and then window height for self.y. And then come back over here, and you'll notice that it's now spawning right in the middle of the screen. And you'll also notice something there about the way I'm working with these tools for now. I could have gone back and said, hey, cool, I agree with your change. Go ahead and fix it. And I intentionally chose not to. In this case, I'm, again, just treating it as a fellow co-programmer. Cool, somebody else pointed out my bug. I'm going to go fix the bug. If you do want to turn one of these tools, a RooCode or a Klein, loose on your code base, something that I recommend doing is spinning up a branch, just making sure that all of your changes are stashed, that are checked into whatever branch you're on. Check out a RooCode branch and give it a whirl. Let it build the thing that you want to build, but let it do that on a separate branch where it's not going to impact your core code while you're experimenting. And I think that's a way to kind of, again, treating it as a separate developer. You wouldn't let another developer come in and commit straight to master on your repo, hopefully. You shouldn't let something like RooCode or Klein do that. So that's my advice, whether you're letting it code for you or using it as a reviewer, to treat it as a coworker, treat it as somebody else who's working on your projects with you. Don't 100% let it take over, because you will slowly start to see your skills decline. You'll forget how to do basic things, and have fun. There are some really cool tools out there that I think are going to continue to make development better over the long run. And with that, I will say until next time.